Joe, thanks for coming to the table. I really appreciate it. We are about 48 hours away from the Super Bowl. So you're still kind of groggy, I'm imagining. But tell me, representing Joe Flacco as an agent, what was that like going to New Orleans last Wednesday and seeing from start to finish? Tell me what that was like as an agent.
There was sort of two phases of it. Getting down there on Thursday, you're kind of still pushing him as a great player, that type of thing. Did a lot of rounds through the media center, still sticking up for him like a good agent or a good dad would do. But that was the sort of the pregame type of stuff. And then really just seeing him before the game and talking to him. And really, you know, when I saw him, we didn't talk about the game. Right? It was just, you know, how's it going? What'd you do down here? You know, he got in one of those little rickshaws with his wife and baby, and nobody knew him. He was.
And I bet he liked that with all the pressure on him.
Yeah, and it was a Saturday before the game, and he did that, and nobody noticed him until the very end. And it was really cool for him to be able to just go somewhere in peace. And, you know, up until Sunday night, he was a very unrecognizable person, except in Baltimore, of course. But, you know, if he walked around Chicago, nobody would have known who he was. So down there, you know, he was just trying to, you know, let off some steam and hang out with his family. But it's a real crazy time for them, because he had 65 people from his family in town. So most of those nights, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you know, the family stayed in an embassy suites, and they just kind of owned the lobby of an embassy suites, and it was kind of like the area to just sit back, BS, and families were all getting together. It was like a family reunion type of thing for the Flacco family. And then the game comes, and all of a sudden he has this phenomenal game, and now he instantly becomes a national figure, a national celebrity, a national...
And what are you thinking? You're his dad, you're his agent, now he becomes MVP, you know, champion of the world, he's the quarterback, he's the guy, you represent him. What are you thinking about? What's starting to happen then as that
Well,
game
you're
ends?
thinking that you know that what you had said all along was correct. You know, what I predicted about him and said about him came true to fruition. And with the endorsement stuff and the marketing stuff, he's just not that kind of guy. He's just a nerdy, stay-at-home guy.
You call him Mr. Cool, and I was watching him, the game, and he was sitting, you know, this was after the power outage, 34 minutes, 35, whatever it was, and he was kind of sitting on the bench. I would have been pacing, but you describe him as just kind of nonchalant, Mr. Cool, but it's got to be, I mean, I'm on the verge of maybe making $100 million if I win this game.
Completely unfazed by it for a couple of reasons. One is he's made enough money already to be set for life. So he's not driven by money, he's driven by the recognition that he is what he knows and I know him to be, which is the best player.
We've got a couple of pictures of you and Joe squared, if you will, that I'll put up. Okay, where was this?
This is in the party that we had at a place called Huck Finn's down in New Orleans on Decatur Street. And this was after the game, I would guess about 1 a.m. because we still look somewhat coherent at that point. So that we had a party. Those other guys there. To Joe's right is Matt Burke, who's a 15-year player, started the last 4 years with Joe. And then to my left is a guy named Gino Gradkowski, who ironically is Matt's backup and will be the starting center once Matt leaves.
How many guys were you representing on the field during the Super Bowl?
5 players and 2 coaches.
All right, that's not bad, Joe. That's not bad. Okay, so he wins the Super Bowl. Stuff starts to happen. He's the king of the world. Now, you go to Disney World at some point. So what happens? You go with Joe. What starts to happen? I mean, it's moving like a locomotive.
Well,
now.
the day, you know, before we got too heavy into the party, we kind of planned the next day, and we kind of knew what was going on. We knew we had to be what I thought was 7:45, but I found out at 4:30 a.m. it was 6:45 to be at the lobby of the team hotel for Good Morning America. And really, I have no purpose here other than I'm the piano player kind of, but I need to be there to make sure things go smoothly, nobody takes advantage of him. It's going the way it was described, because Joe's not the kind of guy, wait a minute, I didn't say I'd do that. So I really have no purpose, but I'm there to make sure things go smoothly for him. That was kind of my role. So then you get, from the Good Morning America deal, you get into a limo, you go to the convention center. And he does the MVP press conference with the head coach, and he gets the keys to the new Corvette for being the MVP. After that press conference, they go into another room where the Corvette is actually sitting, and somebody from, who makes Corvettes? GM, I guess, is the executive there, and they're doing their little song and dance about, the car and whatnot. He gets the keys, gives the keys back, goes back, and we get into another limo and go to the executive airport in New Orleans, getting on a private plane and then going to Disney.
What happens at Disney?
Get out of the, and by the way, every place.
We've got some pictures of that. Here's you and one of the chipmunks.
Yeah, I told my kids I was the referee from the Super Bowl, but
they're old enough not to know that. And we see Joe here too, outside the castle at some point at Disney World. There he is.
Yeah, they did a little press conference there. That's just people from the press. So Disney, was great. They didn't take advantage of him. He rode in the parade, did the little Mickey and Minnie time, and did this little press conference, signed a few things, and they were very efficient, and we were very thankful because we were running late. Because on the airport in New Orleans, they closed down the airport because there was so much traffic leaving New Orleans at the regular airport that this airport got second fiddle, and we had to sit on the tarmac for like an hour.
So from Disney, you go to the David Letterman Show. Now there's another private jet waiting to fly.
Yeah, and everywhere you go, you have police escorts, and it's just crazy. So
So this was, you flew to Teterboro, and this was
one of the two helicopters that we got on to go from Teterboro Airport over to Manhattan to the Letterman Show.
Okay, and this is Joe and his family and his little boy, and they're expecting another one now.
Yes, it was announced at my party, and that was where the public release was.
And then the last picture, we see Joe outside the Letterman Show with a bunch of trash on the right-hand side, which I thought this was an awesome picture. Who took this? Did Joe take it, or just somebody on the street?
No, that was the guy, Tom Klein, that works for me. But that's me. That's not Joe Flacco.
No, I know it's you. Then that's why I love the picture. So this wraps up a day of just constant. What's going on in your head now that you're now representing this guy who could be worth $100 million, the most of any football player? I know you say he's low key, you're low key, but you got to do the deal now.
The most important thing for me at that point, like when the Letterman Show was over, was to get to bed. There was nothing more.
You're not answering my question.
Because I knew that when I woke up the next day, I was still going to be Joe Flacco's agent. I figured I would worry about it.
So how does this, you guys didn't come to terms early on in the season. So now you're going to come to terms, and he's the guy. How do you as an agent go about doing this? Is this easy as pie because he wants to stay with the Ravens? Or is this a tough deal for you to
This is one where, we chose in July to take a risk and tell them thanks but no thanks. Joe and I both agreed that he was going to be getting better, and what they had offered wasn't quite what we thought he was worth. So you're really, gambling a bit there, because what they offered was not unfair. It just wasn't what we thought he was worth. So we gambled on his ability, and we, as everybody said in the networks, we were right. So right now it's just an issue of them calling us and sitting down and trying to work out something that's fair for us and hopefully fair for them.
Is he worth $100 million?
Oh yeah. Well, is Tom Cruise worth $50 million for a picture? I mean, the numbers are crazy. I'm absolutely not worth what I make, but it's the market.
Don't say that.
But it's really the market that we're in. You're in the entertainment business, and there are people in every facet of the entertainment business that are overpaid relative to what people on the outside look at them to be. So it's just the market. So I don't, is somebody playing a sport they played for free for 15 years worth that kind of money? Nobody is, but that's the market.
How soon does this go down? How soon do you wrap this deal up?
I mean, as soon as they give us what we think is right.
NFL, I heard a player say at the Walter Camp Football Foundation dinner, NFL not for long. So Joe is 28 years old. How many years does he have in him? And do you start doing the math to what he's worth?
Well, yeah, that factors into it, because when you do a deal of this magnitude, which could easily be the highest contract in history, you look at his body of work of what he's already done in the last 5 years, and then you project out to what he's going to do over the next 5 years. So on both accounts, he's exemplary, because in the last 5 years, he's in that rarefied era of having won more games than anybody else in their first 5 years. He's never been hurt. He's won more playoff games.
Yeah, he said he's never had a concussion.
Right. And he's won more playoff games. He has more road playoff wins. All of these rarefied air accomplishments. And then when you look at him going forward, you would expect that he's going to get better, and he's in the prime without having been injured. So you have to project that it's better for a 28-year-old with that resume than somebody who's 34 or 35. Because if you give a 35-year-old a 5-year deal, I mean, are they really going to be great at age 40?
Right,
Nobody is.
He's on record as saying, I want to stay with the Ravens. True?
Yeah.
He loves Baltimore.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good segue into, let's talk about Joe Linta. You're from Pennsylvania. Tell me about your family. You grew up, 6 kids? How many kids?
3 kids in my family. Grew up in western Pennsylvania in a town called Freedom, which is about 20 miles from Pittsburgh. Got recruited for football at Ivy League schools.
Now, nobody had gone to college in your family, is that correct?
Well, I had 1 or 2 that went but didn't graduate, so
okay.
I'm the only one.
So this is a big deal. You're a kid, you're playing football. Yale comes to call. Others come to call.
A few.
You end up at Yale. So you're a kid from Freedom, Pennsylvania. You end up at Yale. You get hurt your junior, senior year. Mm-hmm. And do you coach a little bit then? Yeah,
I mean, I had a tumultuous career. The end of my career was the biggest pictures of me were getting carted off with my knees. But I played for a great man, Carm Koza, at a great time when we won the Ivy League championship every year. So
you keep falling up, Joe, which is awesome. So how do you end up being an agent? How does that?
Well, I got into after school was over. I got into coaching a little bit, and then I ended up working for Congressman Larry Denardis, who was from our area, and that's kind of what I wanted to do when I was in college. I wanted to be a congressman. He lost an election in the '80s, and I became a stockbroker. While I was a stockbroker, one of my buddies, a former Yale player named Kenny Hill, said to me, "You know football, you know finance, and you're a good guy. You should be an agent." And I thought, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So I got licensed to become an agent in the early '90s, and then didn't do much with it. And then about 3 years later, a guy named Will Shields, who was actually one of the finalists for the Hall of Fame Saturday, picked me to represent him, and then that gave me some legitimacy. And then once you're legitimate, now you can go out and get more players, which I was able to do. So some years ago, I was able to segue into doing the agent stuff full time when it had only been an avocation until then.
How much pressure are you under as an agent? You represent a lot of guys now, and you built up this business, JL Sports. You ever pinch yourself, especially today, and go, what just happened?
No, it's I think that's why Joe and I get along well, because if you ask him about being a quarterback, he'll say it's not that difficult when you're confident in your abilities and you know what you're doing. And I feel I'm pretty good at what I do, and in fact I think I'm the best. So I think a kid is crazy if he doesn't pick me, but that's my confidence in my abilities. But I'm very narrow-minded, narrow approached in this business because it's one of the few things I'm good at. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to change the oil in my car, but I am good at this. So I've worked hard at being good at this. I think I am good. So all of this pressure that you say is not there for me. It's, I mean, if the biggest pressure is ESPN calling and asking me for a comment and I can't screw up this deal. Well, when you know your material, I'm not going to screw it up. I know what I'm doing. And
why do you and Joe work? You seem to be very uncomfortable talking about yourself, because I'm asking you and you're like, whatever. Are you similar in personalities? He's never been represented by anybody else but you, correct? What keeps him coming back to you? Because I would think at this stage of the game it gets very dog-eat-dog, and loyalty comes to play here. You trust each other, he's going to stick with you, you're going to stick with him. I mean, what happens at these really high levels? Because lots of folks are not loyal.
That's right, but he and I are very trusting of each other. He feels good about me. I'm very close with his family, and I don't think I've given him any reason to not stick with me. I think I'm very loyal to him. I've stuck up for him in the press for the last couple of years, and not that I didn't want to, because he deserves it. So, he's a low-key client, and I'm a low-key agent. So one of the things he would tell you about me is I like it a lot because Joe doesn't bother me. I don't call him up and go, how was practice? He knows I'm there when I need him, or when he needs me, he knows I'm there. And if I need to talk to him, I call him, and I'll text him and say, call me. So we're not...
Is that rare in the business?
You have different relationships with different people. I mean, Joe and I are very professionally friendly. We're, you know, I'm very proud of him and everything like that. And then you have other kids that, you know, you're a little closer with. Like, I'm very close with his dad. His dad and I talk, you know, almost every week. So relationships go in different, down different paths depending upon who it is. But the one thing for me is because I'm so difficult to deal with.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, if I watch film of a player and he stinks on a play, I'm not going to tell him he's great to get him to pick me. I'm going to tell him, look, you stunk on that play. You got to get better, or you're going to be working in a bank next year. So, you know, you have to have a thick skin to deal with me. And I tell the kids that right up front. So that's why I'm never going to be great at this. But the ones that do pick me, they're getting the best guy, I think.
You're a dad of 2 sons, married to Purdue grad, who I know. I'm a Purdue grad. You just seem like you're loving life, you're doing your thing. And what about what just happened at the Super Bowl? If I can get some kind of emotion out of you, are you kind of proud about this?
Oh my God, absolutely. It's like, you know, you definitely have that it's good to be the king thing. This whole thing that happened for me was a bucket list thing that, you know, I just am so blessed to be affiliated with these great families. And, you know, don't diminish these other players at the Ravens. Like this kid,
Sure.
Matt Burke, has played 15 years. He's a Harvard guy. I adore the guy. And I always bust his chops that the Harvard guy had to pick the Yale guy to represent him. But I am so proud of being affiliated with him for 15 years. And the fact that in probably will be his last game, he won the Super Bowl. And that 2-minute hug that I had with him at the party was just like, it was just a culmination of everything. But having said that, I coach football at Hamden Hall, and winning a big game at Hamden Hall with my kids playing and coaching them is a bigger high than being at the Super Bowl.
Well, Joe, thanks for coming on, and get that deal done, and we'll hear about that soon.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.